metro Atlanta man was willing to share with me his emotional journey to find his father.
En mi Cuba nace una mata que sin permiso no se puede tumbar, no se puede tumbar, porque son orillas.
In 1991 and 1992, I received these letters from my dad, and it was the last time I heard from him. Until just recently when I received word from a family friend that he wasn't doing well, that he was in poor health.
I've known Vince now for, man, I've known him since high school. Long time. When I first heard this idea from Vince about going to Cuba, trying to find his dad, at first it was like, okay, let's go find your dad. Let's go capture this. But then Cuba. Wow. How do we go to Cuba?
I knew that I had to go to Cuba, that bringing him here to the U.S. was not an option.
We went through an agency in Miami that specializes in travel to Cuba.
I did have some apprehension about, yeah, it's Cuba.
I really had mixed feelings about it.
The main reason we're going, of course, is to find Vincent's dad. But my wife, like Vincent, left Cuba when she was very young.
Traveling back to Cuba after more than 4 decades and going back with my mother to reunite with my dad, I knew in my gut that that would be a life-changing experience.
You look very concerned for somebody who's about to start traveling.
I'm just thinking a lot of fear. So the scene at Miami International Airport was insane. I've always heard about the tons of luggage that travel to Cuba. You know, incidentally, our group, Gil, Dania, my mom and I, had the least amount of luggage. But everyone else, oh my gosh, I mean, they weren't kidding. We saw so many weird things, tons of TVs. I'm talking like 40-inch widescreen, flat screen TVs. Probably the strangest thing I saw was a gentleman with 4 brand new tires. My heart is beating so fast right now. I don't know. It's a kind of excitement and anxiety I've never felt before. And I can't believe that in about an hour, I'm going to be stepping foot on Cuban soil for the first time in 43 years. I'm pretty freaked out. So the flight to Cuba was easy. We were there in about 37 minutes. I mean, it was so fast. I was 5 years old when I left. I remember being at the airport. That's it. That's my last memory, was being at the airport at Varadero.
pleasure to welcome you to Havana, Cuba. Local time here is 5:37 p.m. We now use approved electronic devices. Please keep the aisle clear until the captain has brought the aircraft to a complete stop and the seatbelt sign has been turned off. So it has been a pleasure having you on board today. Hope to see you again soon on another American Airlines flight. Have a fantastic stay here in Havana or wherever your travels may take you today.
And I will always remember the plane landing and walking down those steps for the first time and just standing at the tarmac. The wind was hitting us and I just looked across and I was in disbelief that we are in Cuba. That's Ray. Ray was 2 years old when I left Cuba, and he was our next door neighbor. So he became our official, unofficial tour guide. We're taking the taxi cab to the hotel. I'm on sensory overload. I don't even know what to say or what to feel. I mean, it smells different, it looks different. The old cars are everywhere. I mean, this is our first time back in Cuba in 43 years. So I left when I was 5 years old. I'm 48, and I'm overwhelmed. That's a good thing. First stop in Cuba was El Malecón, mainly because it was about, maybe a 15-minute walk from the hotel. I'm soaking it in one day at a time. I meet my father tomorrow, and I'm trying not to think about that right now. Just want to soak in the scenery. There's a roundabout portion to El Malecón with the Morro Castle behind it. Now that portion was actually built by the American government. El Malecón stretches about 5 miles. It starts in Old Havana all the way to El Vedado. After spending all morning in El Malecón, the four of us, we built up an appetite. We went back to the hotel for some lunch and to reload because the next half of our day was going to be pretty intense because I wanted to visit my grandfather's grave. The trip to the cemetery was about a 20-minute ride to El Vedado. Classic cars, honking horns, and the eclectic architecture kept us mesmerized the entire way. My grandfather left Spain. His parents put him on a ship which sailed to Havana in 1911. Now he didn't get off. He stayed on the ship and proceeded to Ellis Island, where he got off. He moved to Boston, became a CPA, and about 5 or 6 years later, he moved to Havana. He fell in love with the island, and, he met my grandmother and fell in love with her. He never went back to the US. He stayed in Cuba. This is very frustrating and it's disappointing. I mean, if you look around, this cemetery is huge. I mean, huge. And we can't find my grandfather's grave, and we've got the big boss, the guy in blue, who's got his name, he's got his records, but there's some confusion as to whether his grave has been moved from one point to another. We're just not sure. We thought it was over on this side, now we're walking back this way, so chances are we're not going to find my grandfather's grave. Something pretty remarkable happened. Not a good thing either. So Mom and I are looking for his grave. My mom's memory is solid, very solid. And we're standing by this large burial plot and she's like, I know this was it. It was it. It turned out that after a certain period of time, Cuban families like ours who have left the country and been away as many years as we had, the cemetery considers your grave abandoned, and they can resell it. This used to be our grave. Wow. Unbelievable.
So, what happened to the remains?
So the remains probably were moved to the back.
Over here to the back.
Well, this is heartbreaking.
Yes.
I really had my heart set on this.
Yes. But anyway, they were here.
Yeah.
Even that somebody else is here, that's fine. You know, they were here, and you know,
Wow.
we know that. So,
This is unreal. I've never heard of anything like this. I mean, it's really disrespectful.
Well, I heard something before. Yes.
But I mean, here.
But
But anywhere else, you don't move a body.
No, you don't move the body. Even the dead abandoned, tienen 200 años muertos. Sí, ahí.
We didn't abandon anybody.
Pero deciden que no hay lugar donde ponerlos.
Yeah.
Y todos tienen que hacer eso. Los años para el extranjero, todo el mundo. Pero era ahí. Ahora sí te lo digo, que era ahí. Y más que los...
And he was explaining to us too that it's also a matter of who owns the property. So
Yeah.
we own the property, but if we've left and we've gone to the U.S., which we have, and the property, we're not here to claim it, another family member could have claimed it. And I don't think that's family. I think in our case, it probably was, you know, what they consider abandonment. My mother is the strongest person I know. My mom came to this country when she was 25 years old. She was malnourished. She had me, she had my sister who was 2, and her mother with her. My mom worked 2 jobs, learned to speak English, put us through school. My mom remarried this great man, his name is Ramon, and they were married for 27 years. And he, you know, I loved my stepfather. The day had arrived for me to meet my dad. I can't even find the words to describe the emotion, the anxiety that I felt. And it was a really action-packed day because we really had 3 stops. We were stopping at the church I was baptized. We were stopping at our neighbor's house, and we were stopping then finally at my father's house. The first stop we made was at La Iglesia de los Pasionistas, which is the church that I was baptized in. I found a rendering on Google once, and I had my tattoo artist put it on my arm. It's such a beautiful structure. There's so much stained glass throughout the building. The light filters right through it. It's amazing and majestic. And then there's this absolutely magnificent pipe organ. I can almost feel the vibration. It's so weird to go into a place that you really don't remember. I mean, I was 6 months old when I was baptized, and to walk around with my mom, for her to tell me, you took pictures here with you, with me, with your father, or mom used to sit down with her friends in those church pews, every week to go to church. The waves of emotion continue to crash into me throughout the day. And now we are at my old neighborhood. My neighborhood was pretty devastating. Like many parts of Cuba, it's torn down, it's broken down, it hasn't been taken care of. And it showed. As soon as we got out of the car, Mom immediately pointed out the physical changes to our house. So we stopped in at Margarita's house. Now, Margarita is Ray's mom. Margarita moved into her house when my mom was only 6 months old, so they've been friends for almost 70 years.
Y el esposo de Denia, que fue a high school conmigo. So this is Ray's mom.
Ah, okay.
Yes. And we know Ray. Come here, please.
All right.
There we go.
Where are we going, Vince?
We're going in her house. So these were our neighbors, like our next door neighbors.
Wow.
I was here all the time. Esta era la casa de los Okay. Wow.
So this is your house over here?
Right here, yeah. I mean, we were next door.
Porque está en el comedor y está la cocina. Y aquí en el cuarto de mi tía Caridad. Y este era el cuarto mío. Sí.
Look at the mangoes on that tree.
Oh, yeah.
Palma.
Los mangos.
No, los mangos. Ah, mango. Ah. Mira, en Miami también hay bastante, pero aquí, mira para eso. Ajá. Y ese árbol estaba aquí seguro cuando yo estaba aquí.
¿Qué árbol?
No, la palma. No, el mango.
No.
El mango.
El mango es de la otra casa de allá.
Oh, sí, sí, pero él dice que cuando él era pequeño que estaba acá. Estaría aquí.
Pero esa palma no.
No, eso no estaba.
No, eso no estaba.
No, eso no estaba. Ahí había una mata de mango, ¿no recuerdas? Que era la mata de mango grande que
La
había.
mata de mango que era de mi papá.
Esa mata.
Era un mango grande.
Ah, ese.
El mango más bueno que ellos.
Y mira aquí, si tú lo quieres.
Déjame ponerle esto por aquí ya. Pudiéramos salir con la ventana ahí. Esta es la original.
While we had no phone service in Cuba, I did have access to my hundreds of photos on my phone, which I was eager to share with Margarita.
Wow. I'm wearing the same shirt.
Es que allá no hay mucha tiempo de misma cabeza.
Claro.
As el cafecito cubano was brewing.
Cuban coffee in Cuba, you know?
Yeah.
Y este es el esposo de ella.
Anyway, there's one for the camera guy, too.
Aquí yo creo que yo tengo. Aquí lo
En el
We were lucky enough to go inside our childhood home. I was blown away. I was blown away. Mom's described each room.
Okay, I know, little friend.
Things had changed quite a bit. They had taken our property and they had chopped it up so badly that what used to be a pretty large piece of land is now kind of separated like into 4 sections.
Pero cuando yo me casé con tu papá, nos mudamos para acá nosotros. Y nosotros estábamos, la cama estaba aquí y aquí estaba la cuna tuya.
Estaba aquí la cama.
Aquí estaba la cama, sí, y aquí estaba la cuna tuya. Este era el cuarto original de mi mamá y de mi papá. Cuando yo me casé,
My mom remembered every detail of her home. Mind you, it had been 43 years. She remembered where every piece of furniture was placed, what the artwork was on the walls, what trees were planted in the yard. I couldn't believe it.
Aquí estaba el lavamanos de y este cuarto originalmente era el cuarto mío cuando yo era jovencita, una niña.
Yo hice una puerta y un pasillo, pero bueno, porque ya después
está diferente.
sí, la otra casa que era de mi hermana. Sí, es posible.
Okay.
Sí, esto es nuevo.
¿Y este cuarto era
Porque
qué?
este cuarto era el mío cuando yo era una niña. Cuando después yo me casé con tu papá, entonces fue cuando yo me mudé para allá. Entonces tu abuela se mudó para este cuarto.
Sí, era un
Y entonces aquí estaba la cuna tuya la pasamos para acá y después tu hermana María usaba la cuna que estaba aquí.
Okay.
Entonces por ahí estaba aquí la puerta, una puerta que iba para el comedor. Ya todo esto era tierra, esto era...
Oh, okay.
Sí, esto no existía.
The lady who lives in our house now took us to the backyard. To get to the backyard, we had to walk in between our house and the neighbor's house through a really tight space. Mom was trying to remember where windows and doors were because a lot of that was new construction. Mom remembered where every single tree was planted in our backyard.
Yo me acuerdo que esto era grande.
Hasta allá,
Porque era hasta allá. Okay.
hasta el muro.
Hasta el muro ese.
Entonces aquí había una mata de naranja, aquí del medio había una mata de chirimoya, aquí tenía tu papá.
And then she points to another neighbor's house to remind me that's where I used to drink fresh goat's milk every morning from the neighbor's goat. It was disgusting.
God, this is unreal. It is unreal. I've got these weird, cut up memories. I was 5 years old when I left. But I remember being in this backyard, but it didn't look anything like this at all. It was big, it was lush.
We strolled through the neighborhood and met up with old friends who told me how much I looked like my father.
What about this park? You used to play in this park, right?
Yeah, I used to play in this park, and I don't remember it being this close to my house, but I remember this park vividly and playing with my dad in this park. But it looks like shit. I mean, it hasn't been kept up. I mean, these trees are obviously very old, but there's no money here. So the park is really just a plot of land with trees. I mean, it's not a park. I mean, they've got slides, they've got swings for the children. So yeah, I mean, it's still a park, but it's not the park that I remembered. My heart is going like this. Well, it's more like this right now. I'm about to go meet my father.
The car ride to my dad's house was painful for me. Everybody was busy talking and whatever. I was quiet. I was sitting in the corner in the back seat, and all I could think about were two things. One, I'm about to meet my father. Two, what am I going to say? And actually, the third thing was I wanted everyone just to shut up. It was a very rough 20 minutes to my father's house. I could feel my heart pounding through my chest.
I'm just gonna go. Okay. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, bien. Gracias. No, que salga aquí. Claro. ¿Cómo estás? Bien. Pepillo vio hoy, ¿sí?
Mira, mejoramos. Perfecto. Sí, ya se vieron. Siéntate, siéntate, olvídate que él está bien. Siéntate tú ahí.
Pasen.
Entren, siéntate.
No,
Él ahí, sí, ahí. Ay, qué barbaridad. Siéntate, Lenny, ahí siéntese ustedes.
Yo me siento al lado de ahí.
Ahí está. Está bien o ahí enfrente.
Okay. I'm not sure where he's going. I think he's stubborn. I know where I got it now from.
After what seemed and felt like the longest embrace ever, because it probably was, my dad disappeared. My mom, Gil, Dania, we were all standing outside. We had actually just walked into his living room, but he was gone. He went somewhere towards the back of the house with his wife, Maria. And what was probably 5 minutes kind of seemed like 5 hours. And we didn't know what happened. It wasn't until really a few days later that Maria explained to me that my dad was so overcome with emotion upon seeing me, he couldn't really handle it. He needed to step away from everybody, drink a glass of water, regain his composure, and then he joined us.
Arturo, ¿te acuerdas de mí?
Mami.
¿Qué tal?
¿Cómo estás?
Y estos son mis amigos, Gil y su esposa Dania. Y claro, conoces a Rey y
Y el viejo ese que está aquí.
a mí no me conoce. Me viene a interrumpir aquí. ¿En dónde vas a sentar? ¿Aquí o aquí? Aquí. Ok.
¿Qué te puedes sentar?
You want to sit right here maybe, or sit over there.
That first encounter, it was awkward, but not in a bad way. It was just, what do two men who haven't seen each other, so father and son, who haven't seen each other in more than 4 decades, what do you even talk about?
Para ti, con fotos de nosotros.
Yo tengo unas cuantas fotos ahí guardadas también.
¿Oh, sí? Me la tenés que enseñar.
So one of the icebreakers was I brought, I made my dad a photo album with pictures of my sister who unfortunately couldn't come with us, with pictures of me, pictures of my niece and nephew. And we flipped through them, and what's funny is a couple days later, Maria, my dad's wife, asked me, "Can you show your dad the album again?" He was so nervous, he couldn't remember anything. So we did the whole thing over again. So he's been holding on to these all these years. Qué silencio. Oh my God. Someone say something.
So what do you think?
I'm overwhelmed. Don't make me speak. Don't make me speak right now. Yeah, it's rough. The first thing I did when we got back to Atlanta, I went to visit my sister. Hey. It was very, very important, especially since she couldn't go with us. It was very important that I share with her all the information I had learned about our father, and really just share our trip with her. And I'm asking Dad to come. That's the first time I've seen him in 43 years. I wouldn't let him go. Well, I'm going to tell you two things that you need to know. One, the first day, he made a big point of me knowing this. He said it to me twice. He pulled me aside privately. And then the second day, he put me off again to the side off camera to tell me. He wanted me to tell you something. He said, it was very important that you knew this, that I knew this, that you knew this, that he did not abandon us. And he went on to explain that what happened shortly after we all left to this country, and he was trying to get here, and Mom was working very hard and sending him money. But at that time, he had a friend who was involved. He had a friend who got in trouble. But when the police came to arrest the friend, just by the relationship of our dad to his friend, they arrested him as well. Mistakenly, 7 days later, they let him go because he was innocent.
Right.
But what happened in those 7 days while he was in jail, he found himself, this was before his wife, Maria, we were all gone. He found himself without anybody, alone, no family, no children. And no money, because everything that Mom had sent him to help him come to this country was confiscated. It was taken away. And when he found himself completely wiped out and alone, he was too ashamed to ask Mom for help. So that's why he stayed. You know how stubborn and proud Cubans are. He was no different. And I got to tell you, if there's been any doubt whatsoever in your mind or in your heart that he loved us because for 43 years, he only had 3 pictures. One of me. He had 1 picture of me in the 2nd grade and 2 pictures of you, really little. And he kept it. He kept it by his nightstand every night. Every night, he had our pictures by his nightstand underneath a piece of glass.
Ok, María, bueno. Ok, gracias por todo.
Que tiene que portarse bien eres tú.
Los tienes el motor ahí. Y yo fui monaguillo. The day after I reunited with my father, as you can imagine, our emotions were on overload. We needed a day to distract and decompress. And our hotel, La Inglaterra, was in Old Havana, so it was time to explore the neighborhood.
Santa Isabel.
Oh, we checked that one out too. We looked at this one, yeah.
Get a picture. Get a picture of it.
La Catedral de la Virgen María de la Concepción Inmaculada de La Habana. Say that 5 times real fast. Or also known as the Cathedral of the Virgin Mary of the Immaculate Conception. It's located right in the heart of Havana, and it's one of 11 Roman Catholic churches in Cuba. What I find most interesting, though, the entire facade is made mostly of coral taken from the ocean, and if you look really closely, you'll find marine fossils embedded in the coral. A must-stop location on your tour to Old Havana is in Floridita. You must have a daiquiri. That's what they're famous for, and they should be, because their bartender turned owner is credited with inventing the daiquiri in the 1930s. And I have to tell you, these daiquiris, they're not what we're used to in the US. Maybe it's the sugar cane that they use, the ingredients, the Cuban rum, but they are good. And even today, the allure and the style of the 1940s and 50s is still evident in El Corridita. Well, day 4 and 5 brought a little treat, a little unexpected treat. We found Dania's cousin living in an apartment in Old Havana. And we went by, we met her, we had coffee, went back for dinner, just had a wonderful time, wonderful time. And it was also very emotional for all of us. Dania's cousin's name is Elsa and her husband is Maximo. When they invited us over for dinner, they were in this big apartment structure with no doorbell, there's no intercom, and they don't have any phone service either. So, but they have a balcony. So Maximo tells us, here's what you do. You stand on the street and you holler, ring ring,
Elsa! Elsa!
Elsa! Mira, ahí está.
It was really a treat to have dinner at Elsa's house because for the first time it just felt very authentic for us.
It was great to eat a home-cooked meal of Cuban staples like congri, platanitos, and of course, puerco asado. Let's not forget dessert.
This is one of my favorite desserts. So good. And the sugar has been caramelized, Cuban style. It's amazing.
This is very interesting. The sun's in my eyes, so forgive me. We are, oh man, look at the old taxis. So we are on the second story balcony of a two-story apartment in Old Havana. And if you look around you, I mean, everything is dilapidated. I mean, this is sadly nothing uncommon for Cuba. But what's interesting is that the exterior doesn't always match the interior because the inside, yeah, it's modest, but it's clean. It doesn't look anything like the outside. Thank goodness. And something interesting, you notice the signs behind me, the blue kind of arrow up and down, that's a symbol for any place looking to rent a room to a tourist. So you can definitely get a nice clean room for a fraction of the cost of what the hotels would run you in Havana. And this back here, the water, that's part of the Malecón. See boats coming up and down. But my favorite part, honestly, is being a fly on the wall and looking down at the street life and observing the interaction with the locals. There's the bicycle taxi, they're kind of like rickshaws on wheels. And there's a vegetable vendor behind this van. I'm hoping he kind of crosses our path so that we can see it. It's colorful, it's beautiful. You don't see that in America. You just don't see that. Horse and carriage. And we had live music playing the entire night, keeping us entertained. It's what's known as una casa de cultura, which is basically an establishment where folks gather around to play music and dance and just have a good time. We've always heard how beautiful the Cuban countryside was, and we decided, let's go for a little trip. So Gil's family is from Campo Florido. So, you know, it's maybe 45 minutes, an hour or so from Havana. So we thought, let's go ahead and take a trip up there.
¿Cuál es tu nombre?
Osmel.
Osmel. Y aquí estamos con mis pasajeros de siempre.
Buenas, hello, estamos aquí.
In our usual seats.
In our usual seats.
Mom's always in the middle.
And I made it a little bit today. We are going to Campo Florido. So, vamos a ver. ¿Qué motor tienes de carro?
Un Mercedes 5 cilindros.
Mercedes 5 cilindros. Pues eso camina sabroso.
Automático.
Y automático. ¿Cómo vamos a llegar ahí? Por el túnel.
Por el túnel. Ahora salimos de La Habana y atravesamos el túnel de la bahía, que pasa por debajo del mar, por debajo de la bahía de La Habana, que es la bahía donde entran los barcos para bajar la mercancía. Y nosotros vamos a pasar por debajo del túnel que es construido por los franceses.
Osmel explained that the Havana Tunnel, built in 1957 and 58 by the French, connected Old Havana with the eastern side of the bay. The tunnel, which is 2,400 feet in length and 39 feet below ground level, cut travel time from one side of the city to the other from 1 hour to just minutes.
En estos momentos estamos pasando por debajo del mar.
Increíble. The light at the end of the tunnel. Look at the camera.
Riding up the northern coast of Cuba was beautiful. Traveling on La Villa Blanca with the lush green countryside contrasted with crystal blue ocean was as mesmerizing as the incredibly smooth ride of our 56-year-old Bel Air.
Ahora está la calle para Campo Florido.
Terrorismo y del odio para construir espacios democráticos.
¿Cómo se llama la calle?
Cantarrana. Right? Yeah.
Since we only had street names to go by, we made a couple of stops in town in search of any members of Gil's family.
Buenos días. Una preguntita. ¿Usted conoce a Celsa? Sí, a Pucha. Sí, Guillamo el apellido. ¿Usted la conoce?
Sí, sí. Vive después de una casita pintadita nueva que hay, después de que pasa la grande, están ahí, a mano derecha queda enseguida.
¿A mano derecha?
Sí.
Ok, gracias. She looks like my aunt. I think it's her.
Buenos días.
Y Betico. ¿Cómo está?
Ay, mi sobrino.
Sí. Wow.
It was Gil's lucky day. We had located his aunt. It was an unexpected but so pleasant reunion. Once again, we found ourselves drinking large amounts of Cuban coffee. This time, we had the realization that this specific brand was made from coffee beans grown and manufactured in Cuba. Something you just can't get in the States.
No, ese café es bueno.
What's really good?
Yeah.
It's the best coffee I've had here so far.
The flavor was bold, robust, and yet so smooth.
Bye.
After our little excursion in the country, it was time to head back to Havana and also go back to my father's house. I really wanted to see him. That first day was, it was truly overwhelming. So I needed another day to see Dad.
Sí. Yo llamé a mí, hoy por la tarde.
¿Cómo estás?
Yo también.
Dad and I had a chance to actually go outside for a little while and sit and talk, and I mostly listened. I just wanted to hear him speak.
Cuando tú estabas así, ¿sabes? Que no habías cumplido 5 años todavía porque tú te fuiste 8 días después de cumplir los 5 años.
Sí.
Y te daban unas perretas que te tirabas en el piso.
¿Yo?
Sí, tú, que te ponías negro completamente. Hasta un día que cogí, me quité el cinto y te di un cintazo. Y otro día lo fuiste a hacer y cuando dije, ¿quieres que me quite el cinto? Me dijiste, no papi. Porque estas son mis historias.
Ok.
Esas son mis historias. Historia. Y María, que se fue con 2 años y pico, ella te empezaba a acariciar. Y de momento te hacía así.
Con las uñitas afiladas.
Y te hacía así y te arañaba.
Todavía te lo hace.
Sí. Entonces no se le quitó.
No se le quitó. El genio de antes todavía lo tiene María. Sorry, sister.
Pues sí.
Okay, bueno, María va a venir conmigo la próxima vez. Ya verá.
Dad and I continued to talk for some time, trying to crunch 4 decades of stories made for interesting conversation. We talked about everything, from his line of work to memories of my grandmother. We even compared scars acquired from injuries. At the end of the day, this was the beginning of a long overdue father and son relationship. I learned that the love was always there. It just needed a chance. We crammed 40 years in 40 minutes. It was wonderful. I learned I have a step-family. My dad's wife, Maria, welcomed me with open arms, and she has 2 children my age. A daughter who is a doctor in Chile, so obviously we didn't meet, though we've connected through Facebook, of course. And Maria has a son, Leonardo, who lives around the corner from them. We went over to his house so I could meet his wife and son. We rode in my dad's Jeep. Like most vehicles in Cuba, it's from the 1950s. But wait, that Jeep doesn't look that old. Well, looks can be deceiving. Dad found a photo of a newer model in a brochure, and together with Leonardo, they modified and rebuilt it. How cool is that?
What haven't we done yet?
At Leonardo's house, I met his family, checked out the backyard where he rebuilt cars, like he did the Jeep, and I picked more guava off the trees. Dad insisted.
¿Qué mata es esa? Vamos guayaba, ¿no?
Vamos allá. Ahí yo no puedo. I've got a guava collection started. I already ate the first one that he gave me.
Well, Dad is already planning my next visit to Cuba. We're going to slow roast a pig in this 55-gallon drum barrel. On our 6th day in Cuba, we had a little zip code change, so to speak. Our hotel, Inglaterra, which by the way, we loved and recommend. Well, we only had it booked for those first 5 days, and we were moving to another hotel, a very famous one, a very historic one called El Hotel Nacional.
We're going to be driving for about an hour, just getting like a little tour. And then we're going to end up right at the National Hotel. So what do you think, Vince?
El Hotel Nacional, chico.
El Hotel Nacional.
And say hi to our driver.
Hola, driver.
We're both wearing pink.
Están vestidos igual.
How are you? Welcome on board.
¡Los cumbanchanos! Yo quiero alegrar el mundo con mi sabor natural. Yo quiero alegrar el mundo con mi ritmo tropical. Porque por mis venas corre guarapo, pimienta y sal. Que por mis venas corre guarapo, pimienta y sal. Cuando se agita mi cuerpo y me pongo a guarachar, se me alborota el picante y a todos pongo a gozar. Se me alborota el picante y a todos pongo a gozar. ¡Anda! ¡Champín! Por mis venas corre guarapo, pimienta y sal. Que por mis venas corre guarapo, pimienta y sal. Cuando se quita mi cuerpo y me pongo.
If you know the movie The Godfather, then you already know the Nacional and the area it's in, which is known as El Vedado. It was only fitting that we arrive in style, and this yellow 1950 Chevrolet convertible did just that. El Malecón stretches about 5 miles. It starts in Old Havana and stretches all the way to El Vedado. El Malecón was built in 1901 to protect Havana from the waters, but truthfully, it's really known more as a hangout place, a dating place, a place to take the family. It makes it for a great date night. It's for entertainment. There's just something that feels so right about sitting on this very wall. It's part of history. It's part of every single picture I've ever seen of Cuba my entire life. You got the waves crashing against the Malecón, and I don't know, man. I can't describe the feeling. It just feels really, really good. Cruising along the Malecón, we are on our way to Varadero today to visit what has been rated one of the top 10 most beautiful beaches in the world. And we got Osmel back with us, our taxi driver from the other day when we went to Campo Florido. And he's been charming us today with all of his knowledge of Cuba. Varadero is about 2 hours away from Havana, and actually, it's the place that we flew out of in 1970. Well, these are good.
It is good.
So what have we got here? Well, we have got some pretty fresh food. These right here are fried plantains made into chips. They're fantastic. But what I'm excited to try, the fish. Oh, it's hot. These are fried swordfish.
You know it's fresh. You know it's very fresh. But it's also very hot, so I'm gonna put it down for a second.
Today, Varadero is probably one of the most touristy parts of Cuba. The beaches are beautiful, blue waters, crystal clear, very clean beaches, white sand. This is the real deal. I mean, there's just something about it, maybe because I'm totally biased, because I'm Cuban, I was born here, my family's from here, but this is absolutely exquisite. And the water feels great. And it's technically off season.
Yeah. But you know what? I thought it was going to be colder, and it's actually, you get used to it as you get in, and it's just so good.
Well, that's because I just peed around you. On our drive back to El Nacional from Varadero, the countryside, of course, just absolutely beautiful, and there are street vendors. We stopped and bought bananas, which were the sweetest, ripest, yummiest bananas I've ever had. The other street vendor had a huge block of cheese, but after sitting out in the hot sun for 8 hours, we did not want to buy cheese from anybody. At this point, I am physically and emotionally drained. This journey became a life-changing event for me. And tonight we're celebrating our final night in Havana with mojitos at the Capri Hotel. I'm leaving a very happy man. The end of our trip had come and the inevitable goodbyes were looming over us. For me, it was incredibly emotional. Really, for everybody, it was emotional. Our first stop was at Margarita's house, where we celebrated our trip with her son Ray and his wife and daughter with Margarita. We hung out with some of the neighbors, and Ray held a toast. It was sweet. It was very, very sweet.
Estamos reunidos aquí, la gran familia, hace 43 años, ¿no? Que no venían aquí a Cuba. Estamos aquí hoy reunidos, una gran familia, y de verdad que estamos muy contentos, muy alegres porque ustedes hayan venido, hayan cumplido su sueño, hayan hecho realidad su sueño, y no nos queda más decirles que vuelvan pronto.
Sí,
muy
claro,
que todo sea felicidad, que haya mucha salud. Vamos a brindar, vamos a hacer un pequeño brindis.
Que tengan un buen viaje.
Buen viaje, salud.
Salud.
Felicidad y amor, que todos nos lleven el camino.
Así.
I wanted my time, my last few hours, my last minutes in Cuba to be with my dad. So from Margarita's house, we went over to my dad's, and from there we went to the airport. So at my dad's house, we had another great meal. I also got to speak on the telephone with my half-brother, Panchito. We've never met. My father had him before he met my mother. So Panchito and I only spoke on the phone because he lived about maybe 12 hours from my dad's house.
Okay, ¿tú quieres hablar con papi? No, okay. Bueno, estoy muy contento. ¿Tú también? Ok, bye, Panchito. Bye.
Next trip, I'll definitely see him. Saying goodbye was harder than saying hello. I had worked up so much energy and emotion leading up to our initial meeting that I never even thought about our goodbye. And when it finally came time to say bye to my dad, wow, I felt like I had concrete blocks on my feet. I couldn't move. I didn't want to move. I had a lump in my throat. I didn't want to leave. It was absolutely heart-wrenching. took me 43 years to meet my father, and now I was saying goodbye to him after only 8 short days.
Bueno, papi, te veo pronto.
Aquí tienes tu casa. Te quiero.
Yo te amo. Bye.
Bueno.
Bye.
Lágrimas negras,